Hey guys, welcome to the Luigi's Mansion 3 Reviewcast episode of Dash Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Dash, along with my co-host, Mr. Paul James. How are you, Paul?
Mario! Sorry, just getting right in the swing of it. I've been looking forward to talking about Luigi's Mansion 3 in any capacity for quite some time.
Yeah, definitely. Same here, man. How like, before I jump into the spiel and everything, how good is this game?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been one of those weird ones for me to kind of even analyse in my own head because I've been fairly open about it throughout the course of the last year, essentially since the moment it was announced that this instantly shot into my kind of top 5 most anticipated games because I adore the other games.
Yeah.
So it's taken a lot of kind of just sitting down and thinking over it to really kind of formulate and consolidate my opinions, but we're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. No, I 100% agree with you, dude, and I can't wait to dive deep into this one because it's one that I've been really excited about since they announced it. And Luigi's Mansion, the franchise itself, the series, has always been something that has been close to home because it was actually Luigi's Mansion was the very first video game that I ever reviewed online. So it was like,
oh right,
yeah.
Geez, that's going back a bit too. Launch day GameCube.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I reviewed it in 2006, part of my video review series back then, and it was years after, like when YouTube launched. Basically, it was the first time I actually dived into reviewing video games, and yeah, it got me to new heights and everything, and it helped me out. Speaking of new heights, there's the pun because you go up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a big building.
Guys, if you didn't know, this is Dash Culture, our bi-weekly pop culture conversational podcast, where tonight it's the worlds where Paul and myself collide, where Dash and Paul collide. We'll be taking you through Luigi's Mansion 3, thanks to the kind folks over at Nintendo who provided us a review code to sit down and talk about and review the title. So if you like that, make sure that you follow us right here on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify for those cheeky 5-star ratings, and also over on dashgamer.com where you can actually check out my full written review once this goes live. So make sure that you head on over there and check that out. Now, Padge, let's just dive right into this because it's one of the most anticipated titles, honestly, for the year for both of us. I know that you've been waiting for it for a long time. So have I. Like when they announced this title, it just had me salivating over the fact that we're getting another entry into the series. It was one of the most adored franchises. Well, it was only one of the most adored entries into the Nintendo sphere, I guess, when it launched on the GameCube back in 2001. What were your thoughts on the initial entry, and then how it kind of
how it's developed since?
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel like since then? Because you got your taste of Dark Moon, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was one of my games of the year. In that was it 2013. I'm going to say
2014, I think. Yeah,
it was the same year as Fire Emblem Awakening and whatnot.
Yeah,
but look, the first game, I mean, it obviously has some faults.
Obviously,
it's far from perfect.
Well, it was a testing bed for GameCube, really.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's the same thing that we see, not just exclusive to Nintendo games, but just like console launch exclusive titles tend to carry a little bit of extra weight. Firstly, there's usually heightened expectations, and so the criticism can be a little bit harsher, whether it's warranted or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you can compound all these things, and people can overall be a little bit harsher on a title than perhaps they would have been if it released 6 months later.
Yeah.
But the first Luigi's Mansion, look, I mean, it's been a long, long time now since I actually played it. I didn't play the 3DS remaster or port, I guess. But I adored the game back then. It's one of those ones that I never actually went back to. It was kind of a one and done sort of experience. But I loved what it was, and it was a really solid foundation. I was actually a little bit worried for the longest time that we were never going to see it again because it was so long between that and then Dark Moon.
Yes.
But Dark Moon was, as I said before, one of my games of the year in its respective year, whichever year that was. But I assume you're probably researching that right now.
That's correct, yeah.
And it's just...
2013, you were correct.
The franchise just exudes charm.
Yes.
Like it's, I mean, in the case of Luigi's Mansion 3, we'll get to it in more detail later, but I mean, the game is beautiful, but it's not necessarily the looks that are what's pulling you through when I'm talking about that charm side of things. It's more the personality, and it's just an endearing sort of experience.
Yeah, very much.
And I honestly didn't think that the franchise would probably peak beyond what they did with Dark Moon because I thought it was that good. But it seems, showing my hand now, it seems like they have.
Yeah, definitely. Look, what
about you?
Look, personally, with every entry that's come through, obviously we've only had 2 beforehand, but with Luigi's Mansion, there was always something about it that did exude that charm that potentially may have led people to believe that this could have been a franchise that could have been ongoing, but sooner than they actually did. So we had in between, releases of each console generation. We had the GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, and then we pretty much didn't have anything on those consoles that actually, a lot of people were expecting a Wii version of Luigi's Mansion to come out, especially with the controls. It would have been somewhat,
a good fit.
Yeah, revolutionary, if anything, at the time. There it is again, yeah. And that was not meant, but anyway, yeah, there you go. It was just one of those things where it made people question why Nintendo were kind of very blasé over the fact that they were just completely ignoring the franchise and not coming back to it. When they came back to it on Dark Moon and saw how much attention it was actually getting at the time, how much positive attention and how much positive of a reception it was getting. Yeah. They definitely knew that they had to go back to it, and the fact that they've now kind of played on that positive reception and that reaction that it was getting. With the announcement of Luigi's Mansion 3, it honestly just made me so excited to jump back into this franchise and experience it as it should be. One of the best gaming franchises out there. It's honestly looked over and ignored by a lot of people because of how simplistic it can be at times, and I can understand that.
Oh, and it's kind of got that family-friendly sort of style about it too. It's accessible, which some people will then use as a criticism as opposed to a compliment, I guess.
Correct, yeah. And honestly, it definitely should be a compliment because it's a game for everybody. Everybody can sit down and chill and play a game of Luigi's Mansion 3 and enjoy the fact that if anything, Luigi's Mansion 3 really presents more of a cinematic value to the series now. It really...
Yeah, more so than any before.
Correct, yeah. I remember when Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon came out, and a lot of the animation sequences and even the design aspect of it, graphically, I even said, me and my mate were big into the original Luigi's Mansion, and we couldn't wait to get our hands on Dark Moon. And as I said, the design aspect, it really reminded me and resonated with a Wallace and Gromit kind of design, and we were very much wow, that's very odd of a design choice for them to actually go forward with. But that looks really cool, and we can't wait to get our hands on it. Because
it's an interesting comparison. It's probably not one that necessarily springs to my mind.
No.
I could see how you might be able to draw that thread, though.
Yeah, it's very much it was very Disney-esque, if I put it anyway. Yeah. It was very much we're presenting Luigi's Mansion now in a different light than what you remembered on the GameCube. This is going to be much more of there's much more of a cinematic value to it. We want to make sure that we're telling a story. It's not just simply Luigi going through a mansion trying to find Mario this time. And in the previous entry and the current entry into the franchise definitely stepped up their game in terms of presentation. And they wanted that, obviously, because they want to make sure that this franchise sticks around for a long time now. Whether, it's only once per generation, we're fine with that because it's...
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it only makes it better and better.
Well, it's also one of those things where the gimmick's probably not the right word to use, but the core mechanics, the core systems, there's only so much scope to get really creative available to you. Mm-hmm. So if they started churning out multiple games per platform, maybe only 2, because that's not, Nintendo doesn't oversaturate.
Yeah.
But suppose they do 2 per generation, that is going to wear thin very fast.
Correct, yeah.
Whereas if they move to a new system, it's an opportunity to explore the capabilities of the new system in terms of technology, how it looks, but also mechanics and systems and all those sorts of things. You start churning these things out, multiple games on the same platform, and all of a sudden a Luigi's Mansion 4 on the Switch, as much as I'm sure it's probably still going to be a lot of fun, it doesn't necessarily hit in the same way that Luigi's Mansion 3 does. No. Because we've seen it and done it before.
That's correct, yeah. A lot of entries that we see on the same generation of systems obviously recycle a lot of mechanics and framework that come from a previous entry on that same generation line. We see that in annualization of games. So
yeah, I mean, Mario Galaxy 2, for example, was built on the backbone of Mario Galaxy, and admittedly they said, look, we had all these ideas that we couldn't fit in, and we decided to push them into a sequel, but it is still born out of the core concept that was established. I'm really curious to see what path Nintendo goes down. Not that we'll spin off into a really large conversation about Zelda here.
No.
But to that point, like, what's Breath of the Wild 2 going to be like?
Well, that's the thing. Like, a lot of the framework, I believe, from Breath of the Wild will be lifted and put into Breath of the Wild 2. It's a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. Something that Nintendo have not really experimented with before. They've never actually released direct sequels of the Zelda series ever. It's always been, here's a Zelda story here, here's a Zelda story here, and it's essentially
absolutely
different timelines within the Zelda.
They connect
Zelda
the dots
history.
afterwards.
Exactly. Whereas what you just mentioned, the Super Mario Galaxy series, when they essentially recycled unused levels from the first entry of the series and then placed it into a game which they labeled number 2. But history tells us, and if you know that, like if you know your homebrew history and your hacker history like I do, the ROM title for Super Mario Galaxy 2 is actually called Super Mario Galaxy More. And that's actually the header title for the disc. Which is funny because that essentially, like, and a lot of people did their homework, and then, like, I think they actually came out, Miyamoto came out later on and actually confirmed that a lot of the ideas that were in Super Mario Galaxy 1 that we couldn't fit in are actually Super Mario Galaxy 2. So it was actually cool to see that Nintendo didn't waste those ideas and they made a great sequel out of something that was kind of just recycled junk in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about something like Mario, and this boils down to kind of link it back to our Luigi's Mansion conversation.
Of course, yeah.
A game like Mario, you can kind of get away with that a little bit more because it's a 3D platformer, so there's that skill component. There's more scope for diversity in what you're doing, and that's simply not something that's available to you when you're playing a game like Luigi's Mansion. Right. So if they tried to apply the same idea, and I think it's probably fair to assume that there's different floor ideas that they had that ultimately fell by the wayside, they wouldn't work so well. I mean, maybe that idea does ultimately come back in a Luigi's Mansion 4, but it's being revisited with maybe, again, those things I discussed before, those new mechanics, those new systems, the new, maybe a visual style, or whatever it is they ultimately do.
Yeah.
Those ideas can still persist, but in a different way to what they did with Mario Galaxy.
Well, you're definitely correct, and I've just been reminded because I've got some footage up on the screen right now of Super Mario Galaxy 2, and the thing is, like, there were new mechanics that they actually introduced in the second entry of the franchise, which was the cloud suit that they didn't use in the first one, and
Yoshi.
Yeah, exactly, and Yoshi as well. So even lifting into the initial framework of Luigi's Mansion 3 and actually making a sequel, a potential sequel, we're only like kind of,
yeah, we haven't even really dissected Luigi's Mansion 3. We're already talking about what Luigi's Mansion 4
because we're so excited.
But of course, in Luigi's Mansion 4, you'll be able to ride Yoshi and just eat the ghosts. He will be your vacuum.
It's called Luigi's Mansion 4 Mario is Missing.
yeah. Let's go right back.
That's right. Oh. So let's actually jump back and talk about Luigi's Mansion 3. Have you finished the game?
So unfortunately, a few life circumstances, it basically meant I'm within about, by my measure and having done a little bit of reading, about 45 minutes away from finishing.
Nice.
I spent a lot of time in my work breaks today.
Oh, nice.
Like smashing it to get to the end.
Fantastic.
And I didn't quite get there.
That's all right.
But, I mean, I've seen more than enough to know.
What floor are you up to?
Like 14.
Okay, yep.
I'm like second from the top.
Yeah. Nice.
So I've done almost everything, and it frustrates me a lot, actually, that I couldn't quite get it done in time for the recording, and I'm kind of very excited to finish it off once we're done tonight.
Fantastic, yeah.
I did enjoy the fact that it's not, I mean, for the most part, it's a linear crawl up the building.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you bounce back to basement floor 2.
Yeah.
And there's reasons when you're on level 8 where you've Polter Kitty, whatever they call it.
I think it was Polter Kitty, yeah.
All of a sudden you're having to go back to level 7, which is the one that's the heavily vegetated one. And they're giving you reasons to go back to these other floors, as well as the gems and then the booze and all those sorts of things as well that they've introduced that give the game a little bit more life, diversify the experience a little bit more, because as much as I love Luigi's Mansion 2, you are just going from point to point to point to finish. Done. There's no real incentive to stick around.
No, of course not. Yeah. With Luigi's Mansion 3, though, there is a certain goal to making sure that you go through each level and then revisit those other levels, and essentially you're upgrading your Poltergust, which what he calls Poltergust goo this time.
Yeah.
Due to the fact that you carry Luigi in that as well. Yeah. I gotta ask you a question, because I made a little bit of a snarky tweet today. Well, it wasn't really snarky. It was a bit jokey tweet that I said Luigi's Mansion 3 is a Persona game. Now, the reason I said that was because I feel like
I missed this.
Yeah. I said that like as a joke, but what I really meant was I feel like the genre of Luigi's Mansion is somewhat in a mixed bag, where it's looked at like as an adventure, or they class it as an action adventure title, is what they class it as, or a platformer. I wouldn't even consider it a platformer. I'd say it's more. I agree. I like honestly say it's an RPG kind of title. There's some format of RPG, because you essentially are dungeon crawling. You are looking for upgrades as you dungeon crawl. So basically, you're collecting stuff and looking for upgrades as you go through to actually collect and give to Professor Gadd down in the basement.
Yep.
There is a lot of I can understand the adventure aspect of it, but I really felt like there was some form of RPG element put into this. Whereas in the past entries, well, there was some subtle upgrades in Darkmoon, not as grandeur as it has been
100%.
in the third entry. But I definitely felt that this, with its cinematic presence and essentially these upgrades that they were presenting you in the title, it really made me think, man, this feels more action adventure RPG than any of the previous entries. I can't really suggest that this would be placed within the platforming category at all.
No, I definitely wouldn't call it a platformer.
No.
And as much as I can kind of see your point about how there's RPG-ish tendencies there, in terms of the way they're kind of drip feeding in these new systems. I mean, we tend to think of an RPG as something that we can kind of, whether it's really obviously stat based or not. There's that upgrading aspect to it as well, which is not a thing here.
Yeah.
And so probably that general genres these days are so bloody fluid as it is.
They are, yeah.
But that kind of action adventure sort of thing is probably the right fit for it still, as far as I'm concerned, but it does pull on so many other threads. To your point though about those different systems, so yeah, when Luigi gets introduced, I was pleased to notice that it was a good hour into the game before you actually get that. I expected to have him straight away. Like here's the gimmick, off you go. Not that it is a gimmick, but like here's your new point of difference, and off you go. But that's not the case at all, which was nice, and I think it probably just eases you into the experience a little bit. There's just lots of quality of life improvements that they've made here that I really appreciate as well. The controls are still a little bit as far as I'm concerned.
When you start vacuuming and sucking with the Poltergust, and essentially he starts sidestepping instead of actually moving around like properly, that's still just annoying.
Yeah, and I mean, I found myself very often having to go with the old-fashioned claw grip.
Yeah.
I was trying to grab my Joy-Con there to make the point.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I think everyone can visualize it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that's just for little things like when you're trying to use the blacklight, for example.
Yeah.
But you need to also be using the stick to kind of pivot in a way, so you're manipulating your hands really awkwardly to try and keep your index finger on. I've been so messed up by controls these days. The X button.
Yeah.
But then try and steer the right stick as well as what you're doing with the left hand. Like that's the one thing, and it's been an issue for probably not the first game, because the first game was simple enough that it wasn't a factor.
No.
But certainly with the sequel and this, they just haven't quite gotten right yet.
Yeah, correct.
And
the funny thing, I feel
I don't have a solution for them.
No, but I feel like the one major problem I definitely had was the fact that every time you would move and then you'd accidentally maybe nick the vacuum button, the start to suck, like the sucking in button, it basically, he starts sidestepping. And then afterwards, if you try and move around, you got to use the right stick to get it perfectly angled to get another ghost or get to another area. And there were even moments where I wouldn't even press the button and he would just start sidestepping, and I'd be like, oh man, I'm stuck here. I need to now, like, it should be as fluent as using that left analog stick, and he should be moving around just as comfortably to do it. I mean, I can understand having to use the right analog stick to kind of get him motioning to move around like that. But it just presents moments where you're stuck in a position where you can't get out of after.
Yeah.
And that was my one major gripe with the title. Other than that, I thought that the motion sensing within the controls were awesome.
That was one of my big kind of ways to offset that issue, where I ultimately ended up using the stick just to purely control my left and right, you know, in the full 360 there, and I would use the gyro, whether it was playing portably, whether I was using the Pro controller or whatever the case happened to be. I would use the gyro then to adjust that height, and that was far better. And it's something that actually Nintendo's doing really well across a lot of their different titles. We saw it with Breath of the Wild. We've seen it with, you know, even Wii U games over the journey as well. That the way they're kind of implementing, and Splatoon, I guess, is probably one of the best examples.
I agree.
The fact that they're using like that vertical, it's more often than not, it's just purely for that vertical component, but the way they're using it is perfect.
Yeah. No, 100% agree with you.
And, you know, I hope they keep exploring that and continue to do it with any other games where that system works.
Yeah. Tell me what you thought of also the different types of ghosts that you actually experienced or encountered throughout the each floor that you went through. It was quite repetitive at one point. It got to the point where, we've obviously run out of ghosts that we're encountering. We're actually just getting the same ghost every floor. The same
blue guys or the same red guys, or whatever the case might happen to be.
It was definitely a lack of range after a little while. We definitely encountered, you know, fresh ideas that they were trying to present within like a combination of outfits, or whether it was just different situations that they were put in. Yeah.
The diverse environments really help in that regard. Correct. You know, whether they're in a particular setting, so they're wearing a helmet, or they're in a particular setting, so they've got glasses on, and if the glasses are on, or the helmet's on, you can't blast them with your strobe lights, so you've got to, you know, adjust accordingly. Like they do some cool things via the environment, but you're right though, what you're saying, that the enemy types is pretty basic.
Yeah, very much. Tell me what you thought of the environments, because right now I've got up on screen where, you know how it gets to the one floor where you have to basically climb the beanstalk, essentially. And
that was the heavily vegetated one I was talking about before. Level 7.
Yeah, and where Luigi's basically in the bathroom and he encounters the big red guy in the bath, and he has, like you just mentioned, the mechanic where he has the sunglasses, but this guy had the leaves on his face, and
you have to vacuum them all off. Which was actually one of the more, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as say difficult, but kind of one of the more tedious aspects to it, because like he would, admittedly, he's trying to turn to avoid your the vacuum, but it was kind of frustrating because he did take up a large amount of space in a fairly small room, and you need to manipulate yourself in such a way you can kind of get at least partially in front of him and get a direct shot, because you can go from behind and you'll suck like one leaf every few seconds. Like they're encouraging you to get right in front, but it's so hard to do so, and then his movements are so large that you're going to end up taking a hit. That was probably the one enemy type that I've encountered that's actually frustrated me in any way.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, the environments themselves, you're talking about that vegetated spot. The one that was in the demo, the I guess it's kind of the medieval sort of setting one. You've got the king or whatever, you know, whatever role you're supposed to be, kind of looking down and everything. Like there is a great mix up, and it's, you know, at first blush you think about game set in Haunted Mansion. All right, I know what the environments are going to be like, and instantly you think to maybe a slightly more kiddie version, but Resident Evil, for example. Okay, I understand what a haunted mansion looks like. There's going to be spooks and all this, and it's so far from that. And that's been the case for all of the games. But I think this third one does the best job of that. Yeah, they're 100%. All very, very different.
Definitely.
I don't understand how some of these levels are as big as they are. Like, for example, the Beanstalk one. How? Yeah. How? Yes. But they work. They're fantastic. They're diverse. And they do keep things interesting, because I think if it was a little more basic, it would wear its welcome out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this game incredible in terms of there is no lack of innovation here at all. It's got incredible design, and the delivery in that design comes in full force. Like it essentially, you know, strikes it right where it needs to. Like there have been instances with Dark Moon where I felt that there was a repetitive in nature. And whereas this really had different aspects to this. Every single moment of the game was fresh. It was unique. I felt like its design, there was no flaw ever. Like, there was never a design flaw, I felt, within the title, other than some of the controls. But in terms of cosmetically, it looked incredible. Like, this is honestly the best looking Nintendo Switch game I've played so far. Other than probably Astral Chain, this is probably the best looking Nintendo Switch game I've played so far. And I think, if anything, there's really a set amount of detail that actually shows heart in this. There's certainly, it really makes me question some of the previous titles that they've put out, like Super Mario Odyssey. I was even thinking about while playing it. I was like, man, Odyssey was great, but man, there is so much more in this game than Odyssey did, and the gameplay loop in this is so much simpler than Odyssey. I can see that. I mean, Odyssey is that in different ways. Like, they're obviously they're setting out to achieve multiple very different things. Yeah. But in essence, though, I still agree with you. Sorry, I'm a little bit rattled because at one point there, I think power nearly went out. But no, it's all good.
I mean, the environments, the way they get you to explore them, what they expect you to do within them, it is so diverse, and it does create a very fresh feeling with every level you revisit or visit for the first time. Yeah. But again, revisit is a thing there. Like, you can go back and things are different. There is the boo to catch. There's one on every level. There's the gems to go and explore, and bringing with you some of the new mechanics and systems that you've acquired over the journey will then help you unlock some of those things. Yeah.
There are so many
giving you reasons to go back, and the way they've differentiated those levels really works.
And it's almost like, with those reasons, it's driven perfectly in terms of story, the way they've written that and the way they've presented that on screen. With every level that you visit, you can actually see how much scarier it actually gets with each level, and how confident, the lack of confidence grows each time Luigi gets higher and higher into the mansion.
Even though, for all intents and purposes, he should be feeling more confident because he's done so much already. In fact, he becomes a bigger, whimpering mess. Exactly.
Well, it's just fantastic, because that's like, I guess it's in terms of like anxiety, just building and building every time he gets closer and closer. But the thing, exactly, yeah. But the thing is, like, each puzzle that they've presented, and that's another thing, like, this also falls within that puzzle genre. It's a puzzle game as well, big time. And with every puzzle that's presented, I gotta say that the innovation and the thought that they put into every single puzzle was incredible. Like, I loved every single moment of having to figure out how to get to certain points, especially when some points you were like, oh man, I don't even know how to get to that. Oh wait, I've got Luigi. He's supposed to go through this and then head upstairs and do whatever he has to do here to unlock this door and all that. So it's like, that is incredible game design.
100%.
And that's what this game has. 100% phenomenal game design is what it presents you. It engages you. It's so immersive. And something that I believe, when even putting out a puzzle game these days, some of them do kind of lack that, but with this, the immersion that it presents really helps develop its puzzle cycle, especially having a lovable cast of characters to help you guide you through it, cinematically as well, guide you through it, only pushes the agenda even further to make you want to continue playing it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It all works really, really well in that regard. Yeah. And you did make a point that I've now forgotten. I was gonna dive into further. Frustrates the shit out of me. But no. You made the point, and then I was gonna get to it, and I wandered off. But
that's right.
I mean, yeah. One of the things I really did want to dive into at some point was the balancing of the collectibles.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Whether it's the booze or the gems. We've spoken a lot about replayability, or the ability to revisit these levels, and the fact that there's more to do. It's not excessive. At first blush, you go, oh geez, there's like 16 levels and there's 6 gems per level. That's insane. It's not. You're probably likely to find, I don't know what your experience was like, maybe 4 or 5 of them on your first pass through. Yeah. And upon returning, you'll you'll likely fill in the remaining gaps. The puzzles, that's the thing that I was going to get to. So what you mentioned there about the fact that, I got Luigi and that sort of thing. Now, I wasn't sure at first whether it was because I was trying to rush through the game a little bit more than I would have liked, simply because time constraints and all that. But it's a real testament to a game like this that doesn't have a ridiculous number of systems at play. It is a very basic game at its core, and yet you continue to forget, I could use the plunger here, or I could use Luigi here. If I use the vacuum, I could use the blacklight, and it's going to unveil this drain here that Luigi will just fall straight through. You always seem to forget there's that one mechanic that you've had basically since the get-go.
Yeah.
And yet it goes forgotten because you get so consumed by everything else that's going on.
Correct, yeah.
Even if it's, not a mechanical thing and it's just purely, like that thing there that looks like a wall, it's not. It's wallpaper or it's, cloth, and I just needed to vacuum it and now I'm through. And I don't know about you, but I was beating myself up something shocking after those. I'm like, how did I not... I've been gaming for years. How did I not get this?
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. It happened to me so many times. Luigi is a great mechanic in the game that you can use to your advantage to just basically figure out any secret that they've put in front of you. And like you said, the drain pipe aspect, like it could be on the floor, it could be in the wall, and it could be hidden in certain areas where you don't even know.
Yep.
And once again, the collectibles, the gems that you find, like there's 5 on each floor that you go through. Oh, there's 6. I'm sorry, there's 6 on each floor. And then you've got like the booze that you have to capture, which Luigi spins in your poltergeist to figure out.
And also that really highlights how amazing what they call, what sort of it wasn't the rumble, but it's
3D rumble, isn't it?
3D rumble. Oh
yeah.
Like that just purrs and it feels so good. Like when you start to get close, like, you can genuinely feel the difference.
Definitely.
And it's not like the old days with your dual shocks, or I suppose still current days even with the dual shock, but your rumble packs and all that sort of thing over the journey where it would just rumble faster. It does, but there's also a difference in the pacing and
you can just sense the location in your hand. It
you
really
does. It's almost like you're steering it.
Yeah.
As a result, you're not. But maybe it's steering you, in fact.
So there was one puzzle, I'm going to pull it up on the screen right now because I've gotten right to it, that actually did my head in. Was where there was the key in the mouse cage. You walk into the magician's basic, like I think the lounge or a bedroom or whatever it was. You know what I'm talking about? And then like the key turns into a mouse and it starts running around. Dude, I was there for like maybe half an hour trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. And then like EGAD's like, hey, maybe if you suck it up, it'll come to you and you can figure it out that way. And I'm like, he's trying to give me all these tips. And I'm like, oh God, what is going on? I can't figure it. And then he's finally like, use Luigi to suck it up, and then you can use Luigi to suck it up as well. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I am so stupid. So tell me, do you think that the game may have, like, I don't think the game holds your hand. But there are moments like that do happen where it's like, here's a hint, here's a tip. And then I'm still struggling. Give EGAD a call and he's like, just use Luigi and you can, use yourself to suck it up and it'll be fine.
But I mean, you're right. Like there's plenty of ways to get help if you want it, but they don't force that help down your throat. They're not, oh, hey, do you need something like Nintendo has done with a lot of their other platformers where it's, you've died a few times, maybe you'd like for us to do it for you.
Yeah.
Which, like when or if that pops up on my screen, it's happened a lot recently when I've been playing Ukulele, the Impossible Lair, which is brilliant, I might add.
Fantastic.
But when that prompt in any of those games pops up, I feel so damn insulted.
Yeah.
And it usually spurns me on to go, no, fuck you, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do this myself.
Yeah.
But they don't force it down your throat there, and the prompts are, like you said, you can't get on the phone, he'll explicitly outline what it is you need to do.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's still subtle enough, like, hey, you want to try doing this, and at least it steers you in the direction of a mechanic that you want to take advantage of, rather than just, here's how to answer your problem.
Yeah.
Which, again, if you wish to seek out that help, you can get it. But when it's just offering you suggestions, that's what they are, they're suggestions, as opposed to a direct, let me step by step through this process for you. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, so do I. I think it makes the accessibility better for the younger audience that actually need that kind of help as well, which is great because these titles do expose themselves to that younger audience.
100%.
That's what they're meant for. Even for us, like oldies who love this because we've grown up with that franchise. It's essentially like sometimes we do get enamored by what's around us, and we forget what's with us. Like you just mentioned, Luigi's been with us the whole adventure, and we forget that we have that mechanic at our disposal.
Yeah.
And it really happened to me a lot during this game, and but that's also within the magic of development of this game. It just is pure magic. You forget what
they've nailed it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, dude. Let's talk about how unique each level really is as well, because it really does present something great. Well, there was some similarities in terms of just basic gameplay loop, going around sucking up ghosts and all that stuff. But did you feel like in terms of design, each design that it did pass off something unique that you were learning as you're going through each level? Do you feel like maybe they had missed the mark in some sort of aspect of designing each floor? Because personally, I felt like every single level that I was going through, I was learning something new. I think the one thing that they missed the mark on, though, and really could have nailed, was when you get to I think it was the 13th floor, the pirate ship, the big pirate ship that's blocking the door, and you plug in the poltergust into the wall, and it essentially turns into a mega vacuum and just sucks the shit out of that broken ass,
cleans the whole thing.
Yeah, I wanted that mechanic to be used more.
Yeah. There are kind of again, gimmick is not the right word, but I'll go with it for the sake of this. There's like certain floors will have certain gimmicks they want you to kind of exploit a little bit.
Yeah.
There's one of the ones where you're with the director, the movie director.
Yep.
And you're passing through all the TV screens there, and there's a kind of puzzle that takes you from room to room to room. You collect this, which you bring to the next scene, which, et cetera, et cetera. And just the simple little gimmick of, well, Luigi has to do all this. Luigi's behind the camera. Mm-hmm. And then a whole scene kind of plays out in front of you. Like, they're quite cool. Mm-hmm. In terms of your point, though, where they feel different, there's certainly a few examples where they do, and then others where it's, okay, like, the only reason why I'm stumped on this is because of the context that you've put me in as opposed to what the puzzle is. Like, I can see that this puzzle here is the same as what I did here, totally different levels of the building. And I'm only stumped because I'm not, that feature of the pirate ship there, that dangling thing, I can grab that, which may not have been apparent otherwise. Like, it's a few of the cosmetic things, I think, that maybe lead you to make a few mistakes as opposed to really ultra differentiated mechanics from level to level to level. Mm-hmm. And that's just, there are some really great examples, and your pirate ship one is one of those.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially, I think, actually.
I love it. I'm looking at it right now. I love that moment. It honestly got a genuine reaction out of me. As soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God. That was like, honest to God, genuine reaction out of me, because I fell in love with that moment. It was one of the best moments in the game, but it was like, give me more. I want more. Yeah. I want to be destroying the shit out of things with my vacuum right now, but it was a one and done, and I was like, oh man.
You're so close to the end of that point that they want, I guess there's kind of a natural scale to things too. Like, they want to go with those big, bombastic things near the end.
Yeah. And
that is certainly one of those things.
Yeah.
I don't know how big and crazy it gets at the very end.
Yeah.
Oh, that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
For me. But certainly there is that kind of incline in terms of how big and how dramatic some of these things are. And, exemplified by the Beanstalk and a couple other examples where they kind of magnify things significantly at different stages. Mm-hmm. But they are still built on the same foundations, and it's just a different cosmetic skin, I would say.
Very much, yeah.
But they still work really well. And that's the thing, regardless of the fact that I'm sitting back going, okay, I've done this before, but in a different context. They all still feel really enjoyable. And whether that is that just purely endearing thing of Luigi and the way he is within the environments, the ghosts and their different costumes, the actual kind of setting that you're in for that particular level. Like, all these things come together to still make it feel fresh, regardless of the fact that it is kind of the same thing more often than not. I think that's really impressive.
Definitely 100%. Tell me about what do you feel right now in terms of there was truly something about this that made me feel like I was playing the game of the year. Like, honestly, as I was playing it. And I feel like maybe I have stumbled onto my personal game of the year.
I mean, you could very well have.
Yeah. How do you feel right now in the stance of everything that's kind of just... I know that you haven't wrapped up the game completely. Yeah. I should actually ask before that, how do you feel like about some of the bosses that you have encountered too?
Oh, they're good fun.
Yeah.
And they are one of those things that are quite differentiated. Yes, okay, ultimately, once you exploit whatever their weakness is, you suck them up like every other ghost.
Yeah, pretty much.
But finding that weakness, though, can be a challenge. And sometimes it requires you to use the plunger. Sometimes you've got to wait for them to launch their particular attack. The move that I don't remember it in the last game. The one where you press both triggers and it kind of shoots you up into the air.
Yeah, yep, correct. Yeah, well, that was in this as well.
So, I can't remember if it was... I don't remember if it was in the last game or not, but it obviously is here.
Yeah.
And the way they use that in some of those systems, like, okay, it's going to do this big ground pound and there's going to be that shockwave, which we know how those things work in video games, so you need to avoid it. But, of course, Luigi doesn't have a jump, so how do you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I've got to use that mechanic.
Yeah.
Another one of those things that can be easily forgotten.
Yeah.
But there's enough differentiation between each of those bosses. They still force your hand to think creatively and do things differently. And obviously they start off a little bit easier, and there is that same natural, gradual incline in terms of the difficulty and in terms of what they're expecting of you and the puzzle that underpins that boss.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
Yeah. I think I struggled a lot with the T-Rex ghost. Once I got through that, like once I got through the T-Rex aspect of it and then exposed the ghost, it was like, all right, I'm still having trouble trying to find this guy's weakness altogether. And then when I found out that basically it's just him smashing into the floor, and then you're shocking him, you just get it going. But do you know what
are we talking about the T-Rex, the one that's kind of destroying the city? So this is in the movie set one.
It might be in the movie set. Well, no, it might be in the movie set one. Was it the big No. So it's the big T-Rex that's got the bones.
The big bone one, right?
Yeah. I had trouble with that one. Did you have any trouble with any ghosts at all?
He's the only time to this point, touch wood, that I've had to use one of the golden bones.
Same.
The freebie one that they gave me.
Same.
And that was purely just, it took probably a minute longer than what I needed to go. And even the point where he takes one egg away. So the whole idea at the beginning of the boss there, for anyone who's not familiar with it, there's a couple eggs that fall to the ground. You shoot one at him. It lands in the T-Rex's mouth, and then you go grab the other egg, you shoot it. There's this giant weakness in the middle of his chest there, and you shoot it straight at that. And because he's up here, head crane up in the air with the other egg in, he's open to the hit.
Yeah.
Then after you land that first strike, all of a sudden there's only one egg.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to realise, and I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about it because of the fact
I know what you're talking
to sacrifice Luigi, basically.
Like,
why would you...
Okay, so I knew that was going to happen straight away. So when you had to sacrifice those eggs, and like I was like, oh, one egg's gone. Okay, one egg's gone. Now I've only got one other egg, and as soon as the egg's gone, I was like, it's Luigi. It has to be Luigi. And that was the only time throughout the game that I was like, I remembered Luigi, and I used him. That was one time.
Well, I thought about it, but I was kind of no, they wouldn't. Like, that doesn't kind of fit. Why are we suddenly using Luigi as this sacrificial lamb?
You use Luigi as a sacrifice. You basically make him walk right up to the thing, and he's just looking at it. He's like, yeah, it's great.
At which point he's then head up in the air, and you shoot him in the chest again. Like,
it's fantastic.
That was the one thing that I'm still on the fence about that one.
I love it. It's great. Great mechanic, man. Fantastic innovation. I loved it. Fantastic design. Was that like the very first time that you had to actually use a golden bone, did you?
Yeah. Only because I refused to believe that was it. And then when I finally conceded and gave it a crack. Yeah.
For those who don't know, what the golden bone is essentially continue on the spot. So if you lose a life, basically the golden bone allows you to... Yeah. exactly. So it's essentially just a continue on the spot, which is good. And I'd suggest buy them because you're going to use them. Now, in saying that, how do you feel about your experience so far? Obviously, you haven't finished it, but how do you feel about your entire experience so far?
Outside of the control thing that we discussed before, which, like I said, it's been an issue that's kind of plagued the last game and this one, I think. Overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
Like, if we were slapping numerical scores on it, I'm talking 9+, and certainly worthwhile being in that sort of game of the year conversation.
Yes.
I'm not done with it, so I'll reserve a judgment at the moment. I've kind of had 2 games in my head as the game of the year up to this point, being Fire Emblem Three Houses and Resident Evil 2.
Nice.
And this is well worth existing in that conversation. It's just a matter of finishing it off and letting time do its thing and kind of stew on it a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially since I am such an established fan of this sub-franchise that I want to make sure that I really assess it and give it time to sink in rather than just letting the fanboy energy run away with me.
Yeah. I am so thrilled to have experienced this game. It is such a joy to actually say that I absolutely adored it every single minute of playing this title. I was addicted. It just presented everything that I wanted. A fantastic gameplay loop, incredible design aspect. I just love the cinematics in it. I love the character design. I love the way that they've made it so cinematically inclined, like over some of the main franchises, the main Mario franchises. I felt like this is one of the most cinematic experiences you will get in the franchise. And in just like its initial gameplay, like right now I've got up on screen the opening moments of the title where Boo is chasing Luigi down the hallway. Oh. And that moment there is incredible. Yeah. It really does get your heart racing like, oh my God, am I actually going to get out of this? And I'll be honest, first time, I lost.
Okay, I didn't, but King Boo is intimidating as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Bowser's trying to do the wrong thing, but he's a dopey oaf and no one takes him seriously. No. King Boo is just straight up evil and he looks dangerous. He is dangerous.
Yeah.
And I got away from him on my first attempt, but
nice.
I'd be curious. Maybe I have to restart and just see what happens, or does he just basically eat you? And then
no, actually, the picture frame goes smack, and then you end up inside of it, and it's the game over screen.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
You get straight to game over right on the spot. But look, yes, I'm with you. It definitely deserves to be up there within the game of the year talk as well. I think that within that conversation, though, it definitely does have a couple of flaws. I'm one of those people where, when reviewing video games as well, even if a game does have flaws, there are certainly things. If there's no major flaws to pinpoint, if it's nothing that's game breaking or anything, the control thing might be a little bit of a weak excuse in terms of like the sidestepping and all that kind of thing. I'm considering, and I'm writing up my review at the moment. I'm halfway through it, but I think it might land on a 10. And that's how I feel right now. I know there's a lot of 8.5s and a lot of 9s out there, but I might be giving it a 10 just because, like, I think it's an incredible game. The whole entire experience, I've had a smile on my face. There were moments where I felt the smile on my face. Like, I was like, I'm smiling, and subconsciously, I didn't even know that I was smiling because I'm having such a great time playing this title. It is magical.
I'd agree with all the sentiments. Like I said, I'm probably still in the 9, kind of 9.5 territory. I'm not the one having to do the review for Player 2, but
it's still up there.
I'm in that sort of ballpark. Yeah, and it's well worth considering in that conversation. And maybe I ultimately landed with the same opinion as you. There's other games that might poke their nose up and rival it. We don't know how Star Wars, for example, is going to be received. And then there is, in my particular case, Fire Emblem and Resident Evil to consider. Yeah, I can't believe I'm considering a Resident Evil game for a game.
We've got Death Stranding out tomorrow, and who knows? You might.
Well, that's too. That's very much one of those. That,
it's going to be very mixed.
5
it's a mixed
or
bag.
10.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. But the thing is, like, once again, we don't know what the game of the year conversation is. But as of this, what an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Paul, any closing thoughts on the game?
Not especially. It's one of those things that, unfortunately, I wish I could have, managed to squeeze in that extra 45 to an hour to be able to really put a bow on the whole thing.
It's all right. Now you can enjoy it.
Dario, I was enjoying it as it was. Look,
no, correct.
Like I said at the beginning, this was a sequel that I'd been anticipating for a long, long time.
Same.
And as such, like with anything, there's expectations that come with that, and you are prone to have those expectations kind of cause you some headaches. And that's not been the case for me up to this point. Touch wood.
Yeah.
I am very, very happy with everything that I've played here. This is certainly in the conversation for the best of my games of the year. We'll see where it ultimately lands on. Luigi's Mansion 3 is amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I mirror those exact thoughts. And once again, as I said, I think this might be my personal game of the year. Right now, it's for myself, it's battling between this one and Outer Worlds. So...
You haven't gotten to that yet, unfortunately.
And Astral Chain, actually, I should say. Astral Chain is up there as well in that conversation. But who knows? But I think that this one's leading the way for that one.
Now, let's be clear. Persona 5 The Royal doesn't count as a 2019 release.
No, it doesn't. Okay, fine.
It's just because otherwise, if you count it, we know what your game of the year is. You dork.
No, I'd still say that this does.
I'm just hanging shit. Right.
We'll talk about Persona 5 The Royal another time. But guys, if you didn't know, this has been Dash Culture, our bi-weekly pop culture conversational podcast where the worlds of tonight, Dash and Paul collide. Thank you for everybody who came by and listened to the episode. Don't forget to follow the show over on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. You can give us those cheeky 5-star ratings. And over on dashgamer.com, where you can read our full written review of Luigi's Mansion 3. Also over on player2.net.au.
Yes, .net.au.
Yeah, thank God. I was going to get that stuffed up again.
Darren, I reckon you might be the first person that I've actually done a podcast with where they've actually said .net.au.
Thank God.
They always end at .net, so no, appreciate that.
Make sure that you head over to player2.net.au and read their full written review, and also check out Paul's Player 2 Let's Play of the Luigi's Mansion. Was it 47 minutes?
Yeah, it was about 45 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there you go. Make sure that you head over to Player 2 and check out their coverage on Luigi's Mansion 3 as well. Guys, till next time, thank you very much for listening. And thank you very much for watching. This is Dash Culture, out.
Bye-bye.
DashGamer.com